Hey, welcome to Truth Tuesday with Pastor Josh. Truth is the true and actual state of a matter. It is conformity with fact or reality. It is verified. It's the real deal. Let's look at what that means today on Truth Tuesday. Hey, welcome to our podcast today. I want to start with our commercial break. Yesterday I started doing this. I just got done reading this great book that I'm planning on doing some podcast discussion on beginning July 6th. So if you can, pick up this book. It's Unoffendable by Brant Hansen. It says how just one change can make all of life better. Highly recommend it. And so if you would like to get the book, I encourage you to do so. Order it. You have time. I'm giving you some time to grab it so that you can kind of follow along and join me in that book study. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. You can. I think you'll get a lot out of just the podcasts themselves. So that's just a little bit of a commercial. As we begin today, we have been talking about the message that Pastor Norm brought us this last weekend about the storm. So I've been talking about his points and kind of walking through the sermon a little bit more, just diving into it a little bit more because it was such a great message for us. And so yesterday we talked about how the disciples were in a storm and what that looks like. And so today we're going to talk about point number 2, which is Jesus was with them in the storm, which doesn't that matter? Oh, that matters huge. That matters huge. You know, it's funny. We look at that and say, why didn't they understand that the creator of the universe was in the boat with them? I mean, they somehow missed all that. You know, and there's often times where we saw the disciples just totally missed the boat, pun intended. I mean, or not intended, I suppose, where they just didn't quite get it. And that happened a lot. That happened a lot in their lives, their journey with Jesus. And so I think about that. I think about, man, why didn't you even possibly think about asking Jesus to help? They later on said, hey, Jesus, don't you care if we drown? But you can even tell in the way that they're asking him that they didn't consider that he could help them. Somehow they just felt like he wasn't doing what he should have been doing. So it's just kind of an interesting situation because they'd forgotten who Jesus was already. Again and again they did that. And so I think about Isaiah chapter 25. It says this in verse 4. It says, "For you have been a stronghold to the poor, a stronghold to the needy in his distress, a shelter from the storm, a shade from the heat. For the breath of the ruthless is like a storm against a wall." And so Isaiah is reminding the people of Israel that God is a shelter in the midst of the storm. He's with them. And doesn't that matter? You know, I remember many times growing up as a kid how important it was to be comforted in the middle of a storm. You know, even with our own son, I know that many times Enum, in the middle of something like a storm, wants to know that mom and dad are near. He wants to know that we're there. I don't know if you've ever had that happen where a storm was raging and you needed someone to comfort you. Maybe you were a little afraid of the storm. So having Jesus with the disciples in the boat should be enough to get us through the storm. But sometimes we trick ourselves into believing, or we allow the enemy to speak into us that really there's no hope. There's no way out of this. But we can't forget that Jesus is in the boat. You know, so with everything going on in the world right now, it's a crazy time that we're living in. For many of us, we've never seen anything like this. But here's what I know. Although the storm might look different, the storm might look crazy, we're encouraged by this story of Jesus and the disciples. We're encouraged because we recognize that this crazy storm is happening, but God isn't absent and away somewhere. He's in the middle of it with us, and he is with us in that boat. Now, it might feel like he's sleeping. It might feel like he's not really present. But all along, Jesus is in the boat. And all it takes is for us to recognize that and to go to him in the middle of the storm. It's so important. What storm are you facing personally today? What storms are we facing that we need to go to Jesus with? that we need to remember that he's with us. He is Emmanuel. He is God with us. And sometimes that's all we have. That's all we have. But at the end of the day, that's enough. It's enough to have Jesus with us. We can do anything. We can go anywhere if we know that Jesus is with us. Just like the child who has to know that in the middle of the lightning, in the middle of the thunder, it's okay because Dad is there. It's important to know that the Father is there with them in the middle of it. So this has just been an encouragement to you today. I encourage you to go back and listen to the message. Maybe you need to listen to it again if you listened to it already. Just to be encouraged by Jesus being with us in the boat. What does that look like? I encourage you to live that out today.